Haze is a first-person shoot video game developed by Free Radical Design and published by Ubisoft for the PlayStation 3. It was released worldwide in May 2008. Releases for Xbox 360 and Microsoft Windows were cancelled. The game takes place in a dystopian future where the Mantel Corporation rule the world with a drug called Nova-Keto-Thyrazine, also called Nectar, a nutritional supplement that enables soldiers to fight harder and smarter, but also induces a hallucinogenic effect, where soldiers are no longer cognizant of the real battlefield around them, instead viewing an idyllic, painless environment. The game takes place over a 3-day period as Mantel battles a group of rebels known as the Promised Hand, which is led by Gabriel Skincoat Marino, with the player assuming the role of Shane Carpenter, a 25-year-old Mantel soldier. After Carpenter witnesses the effect Nectar is having on his fellow soldiers, and after a twist in the storyline, Shane then turns rogue and teams up with the Promised Hand to take on Mantel. Gameplay. In Haze, soldiers make use of Nectar. Mantel uses this drug to control the minds of its soldiers. When administered, Nectar can control what a soldier sees, among other things. Similar to the effects of a hallucinogenic drug, Nectar drowns out images of death and destruction. Nectar also reduces recoil and allows the player to zoom in further while scoped. An overdose of Nectar is dangerous, with loss of mental control and death being possible side effects. Nectar also enhances the soldiers' fighting capabilities, allowing them to run faster and jump higher. They also receive a boost in reaction time. A Mantel soldier experiencing an overdose is shown by a change in their armor, changing in color from yellow to red. Rebel soldiers may go into a play dead state just before they are killed, allowing them to regenerate health and disappear from the Mantel soldier's sight, since they can't see dead people while on Nectar. In addition, they exploit Mantel's dependence on Nectar by attacking the Nectar injector, extracting Nectar to use on throwing knives from dead Mantel troopers, and using the injector to create Nectar grenades. These Nectar-enhanced weapons will cause a Mantel trooper to overdose on Nectar, as will attacking the Nectar injector. Later in the game, players also encounter special forces and overdose soldiers that cannot be affected by Nectar-based weaponry. They can also steal a Mantel trooper's gun, dodge, and bury grenades in the ground as mines. Plot. The game begins with Sergeant Shane Carpenter, a veteran Mantel soldier in a dystopian future where he was enticed by Mantel propaganda and dropping out of college, arriving in the Boa region of South America, where Mantel troops have been dispatched to liberate the country from a rebel group known as the Promised Hand, which is accused of ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity by Mantel's mass media. Shane meets his squad mates, Sergeant Morgan Duval, who is the leader of the squad, Lance Corporal Day, and Corporals Pesci and Watchstrap. Day is quickly berated and dismissed by Duval for not taking his requisite dose of Mantel's performance-enhancing drug Nectar. Over a series of missions fighting for Mantel, Shane's Nectar administrator fails to drug him on several occasions, causing him to witness a number of disturbing events. He hears screams which Duval dismisses as just an animal. He has a conversation with a pilot that had received no wounds from the crash and died mysteriously, but for whom Duval doesn't care about that, and he sees the dead bodies of civilian factory workers that Duval's squad massacred in an earlier mission because, as Duval states to Shane Tan, empty-hand is just a grip away from holding a weapon. Eventually, Shane and his squad were sent to capture Gabriel Skincoat Marino, the leader of the Promised Hand, who supposedly eats his enemies and wears a long coat made of their skins. Shane captures Marino only to find that he's an old man who's only wearing a sweater that Marino states is 100% cotton. Marino debates with Shane about war and tells him, "My friend, there are two sides to every war. Are you sure you're on the right side?" Duval arrives and begins torturing Marino, cutting off his finger. After entering the helicopter to return to base, Duval brands Shane as a wuss and thinks he'll become a ape like the rest of the rebels. When Duval starts trying to cut off both of Marino's hands, Shane pulls a gun on him and the rest of his squad, leading to a shootout which causes the helicopter they're all on to crash. After crashing into a swamp, Shane tries to contact Mantel about the crash and his inability to administer Nectar but can't, and starts going into severe withdrawals and experiences hallucinations from it. Mantel forces, realizing that Shane is not taking the proper levels of Nectar and thinking he's gone rogue, mark him for death by labeling him a code Haze and send in the Black Ops to kill him. However, Shane escapes death from the Black Ops by a Promised Hand scout that leads him underground. However, in the underground, he loses consciousness due to Nectar withdrawal. Shane is rescued by Marino and the Promised Hand, and realizes that everything he's been told about them has been false propaganda by Mantel. Shane is forced to kill Pesci and watch Strap when they start shooting up the village. An insane Duval, also alive, escapes after telling Shane he's just an animal, just like the rebels. Having witnessed the unwilling atrocities committed by delusional Mantel's soldiers, Shane claims himself as a traitor, but after Marino says he's on the right side, Shane swears allegiance to the Promised Hand in hope of doing the right thing and to undo the damage done by Mantel. Answering a distress call from a wrecked Mantel cargo ship off a heavily fortified beach, Shane meets up with Ter. Ter, completely battered and wounded, reveals that when they first met, he sabotaged Shane's Nectar administrator to let him have a taste of reality. Ter reveals the cargo ship is filled with the bodies of past Mantel troopers that Mantel was secretly disposing of. Prolonged Nectar use has been proven to be eventually fatal, and Mantel has been concealing this fact by hiding all the bodies of Mantel troopers who have died from the drug, hiding the evidence. Terror also reveals that Mantel's stated humanitarian reasons for intervening in Boa are false propaganda, and the real goal is the destruction of nectar plants being grown by the local population, in order for Mantel to maintain its monopoly on nectar production. After working on a plan to assault the observatory, Ter is then killed by Mantel's Black Ops soldiers, but Shane and his Promised Hand allies escape, having to detour and return to the village due to a Mantel assault. The Mantel assault is repelled and the plan is recommenced. Leading the Promised Hand forces, Shane succeeds in destroying Mantel's regional supply of nectar in remote control network at the observatory control room, causing the Mantel troopers to suffer mental and physical breakdowns from the withdrawal side effects. Marino orders an assault on Mantel's land carrier HQ to finish the war, but Shane is reluctant because Mantel's troopers are now largely defenseless and with no ability to administer nectar. They no longer pose as a threat. Nonetheless, they begin their attack. During the assault on the land carrier, Shane confronts Duval, who has taken over the land carrier due to being the only one disciplined enough to remain sane after suffering nectar withdrawal. After a shootout in the control room, in which the two argue about right and wrong and the nature of war, Shane kills Duval and escapes from the exploding land carrier. The story ends with Marino describing Shane as a hero. Marino, and revealing his plans to use Nectar in combination with free will to give his people some confidence. Marino states that Mantel mismanaged Nectar and denounces them as being just animals, which greatly disturbs Shane, as it appears that Marino has learned nothing about what Mantel has done and plans to use Nectar to his own advantage. Development. According to creative director Derek Littlewood, the game's concept was inspired by the film Apocalypse Now. The intention was to make a mature game with an anti-war message. David Doak has described the game in similar terms. Haze was first announced at E3 2006. It makes use of a proprietary graphics engine that was developed specifically for the game. Though purchasing an engine would reduce the development time, the team chose to create their own in order to have more freedom in the features and game design. The engine provides various graphical effects. Lighting is mainly baked, but the Haze engine also has support for real-time lighting and has a high dynamic range. Particle and fire effects help give the illusion of volume along with motion blur and real-time depth fields. The engine supports color specular maps, normal mapping, and parallax mapping technologies. Haze runs at 30 frames per second. The team claimed that 60 frames per second was not needed for the pacing of the game. The AI system, Conspire, is designed to allow enemies to dynamically react to other characters and the environment. Originally a third-person action-adventure game, as seen briefly in E3 2006, the game was changed halfway through development by Ubisoft to enable Haze eligible to compete with other mainstream games on the market, such as Activision's Call of Duty and, especially, Bungie's Halo. Haze was originally set to be released simultaneously on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC in summer 2007. However, the release date was pushed back to winter, and it was announced at Sony's E3 2007 press conference that Haze would be exclusive to the PlayStation 3. This was a decision that had been made by Ubisoft. The game was then delayed further and eventually given a May 2008 release. Free Radical stated that the delays have allowed them to include several new features into the game. On October 22, 2007, Ubisoft announced that metal band Korn had written and recorded an original song inspired by Haze. The song, which is also entitled Haze, was released as a digital single in the U.S. on April 22, 2008. On February 26, 2008, a new trailer called Nectar trailer was released and featured the song. On April 15, 2008, Ubisoft announced a playable demo would be available on the PlayStation Store in early May. The demo included the 4-player cooperative mode that appears in the final game. Reception. Prior to release, Haze garnered considerable attention. Some media sources deemed it a Halo killer. Quote, however, upon release, critical reception for Haze was generally mixed. It received an aggregated score of 55.73% on GameRankings and 55/100ths on Metacritic. Poor reviews included XPlay, who gave the game a rating of 2 out of 5 stars, citing bad level designs, shallow and stereotypical characters, quirky AI reactions, and a stupid plot. Giant Bomb also gave a negative review, scoring it a 2 out of 5 stars, largely due to its many glitches and extremely short single-player campaign. Eurogamer gave the title a 4/10, calling it this year's most significant gaming disappointment. Jeff Haynes of IGN rated it a 4.5/10, criticizing the horrible plot, weak gameplay mechanics and visuals that are truly underwhelming. Tons of visual issues abound within the game, from texture tears and nondescript environments to pop-in and odd animation problems. Greg Damiano of Game Revolution rated the game a C, citing examples of bland gameplay and graphics, blistering sound, and commenting that the main character, Shane Carpenter, whines and pouts all through the campaign. More generous reviews were also somewhat disappointed. Kevin Vanold of GameSpot gave the game a rating of 6/10, saying, "This madly inconsistent shooter offsets a number of thrilling moments with terrible artificial intelligence and an awful story, and a 7-hour campaign and uneventful multiplayer modes just don't cut it in light of the far better modern shooters available on the market." Swedish magazine Game Reactor gave the game a score of 6/10, but Ubisoft forced the review be taken down from the website. 2 days after being removed, the review was once again published on the website. Narayan Patterson of IGN gave it 6.2/10, while Martin Robinson of IGN UK gave the game a 6.5/10. There have nevertheless been some positive reviews. PSM3 magazine gave it a rating of 71/100 and said it fails to better Unreal Tournament 3, Resistance and Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, and it feels like a novel idea that missed its window of opportunity, but said there is a certain charm to it. The review concluded that the game is worth a look, but shabby visuals, unfulfilling plot and dull set pieces mean it's not a classic. Quote, in addition, Japanese magazine Famitsu awarded the game 34/40. In 2014, Den of Geek included the game in a list of the 25 most disappointing games of the Xbox 360, PS3 generation. In 2015, The Guardian nominated Haze as one of the 30 worst video games of all time, noting that despite having an interesting concept, it was a hollow disappointment. The plot was impenetrable, the characters laughable, and the single-player campaign judderingly short.